Welcome to Front Range Facts. This is Anthony Meisner.
And this is Jim Marion.
We're here to give you your national update, so let's dive right into it.
Yeah, we wanted to spend a few slides kind of just talking about the overall strength of the economy. There's a lot of noise about increased foreclosure rates as well as the Fed not dropping rates and things like that. So we wanted to show you kind of what they're looking at. And you can see right now that people are predicting, 61% of economists now are predicting there is going to be no recession. That's moved quite a bit from last year at this time, where 39% were saying there weren't going to be a recession. So it's flipped essentially on its, back here. And so quite a bit more people are having a rosy outlook about the economy. And unemployment is continuing to stay below expectations, below that 5% metric as well. So when you project it out over the next 3 years, you can see that we're going to have a continuing lower unemployment rate.
All right, so what about all foreclosure metrics are down? This one really tells us that real estate's still hanging in there, right? Good, strong wealth on the industry has really created less foreclosures than a lot of people expected. So that's a good sign.
2.2% below the, down 25% below pre-pandemic levels. That's a huge amount. So, 1/4 less foreclosures than it was before the pandemic. And just to show you a greater view of what that really looks like, you can see here that we're way below average over the last, the pre-unicorn years, the normal years before COVID hit. We are still, drastically below the amount. And we wanted to dive into a little bit of that in the next few slides as to why it is that there's so few foreclosures. And I think this nails it right here, Anthony.
Yeah, Americans are sitting on a tremendous amount of equity, right?
Absolutely.
It says it all right there. Owners that own their home free and clear, almost 39% of all of Americans. That's incredible.
Yeah, only 1/3 of people basically have homes with a mortgage that have less than 50% equity. That's an incredibly huge number, and that is going to continue to stymie the foreclosure game that we've been seeing play out in normal markets. So the huge COVID boost has done nothing but help the normal homeowner to have even more economic resiliency.
Absolutely. What does this one mean, Jim?
Well, this is kind of an interesting thing because it gets back to that resiliency discussion we just had where, you got another $84,000 in overall household wealth that is going to build up through 2029 over the next 5 years, essentially. If you look at just kind of the standard appreciation and what people are going to see from home equity, home price growth equals greater equity for the homeowner and so more economic resiliency.
All right, so what about Case-Shiller prices? They're expecting these month-over-month changes, and these are all really optimistic compared to where we had been, right?
Well, no, this is the seasonally adjusted. This has already happened.
Oh, this is the last.
Yeah. So we've been tracking this for the whole COVID time because we wanted to look at what recovery looked like, and we were in a lot of red like a year ago or so with being
Sure,
down
it was
prices
down
a little bit,
sure.
Decimal percentage drops, but still something. But here we have the recovery in full effect. We have essentially 12 months of us getting out of the really low hit. So we've moved out of that recession that real estate had dropped into.
Yeah, basically, we've been talking about that 4 to 5% annualized appreciation rate in the nation, and this really speaks to that.
Yeah.
All right, so finally, in 2023, home price appreciation rates, and this is kind of what they came in at across the board, right? We look at all of these every single time we look at their estimates, I guess, of going forward. But Freddie Mac shows up at 7% at the highest, Case-Shiller and CoreLogic at 5.5%. But these are really big numbers.
Well, it's also really big discrepancies between numbers too, which,
right.
Here we are, the final numbers are in, and yet there's disagreement as to what that is. And that's kind of the continued frustration just, we have with real estate data, whoever is measuring it is, having different results.
Yeah. And every time we look at these, we look at all 5 of these guys and others, and every time they're still 2, 3, 4% off every time. And apparently,
I think some of it is mixing in, single family and detached. Some is not. Some is looking at, whatever they use for their, back end guidance.
Either way, these are way higher than anyone would have expected, I think.
Yeah, I think, even if you look at the lowest, the 5.5%, which 3 of them, essentially are at, huge growth, for the last year in the headwinds of high interest rates. And so we're going to continue to see, more of that occur over the next few years. But when you break it down by state level, this is where, I thought it was, really helps to get that granular view. You look at like West Virginia had a 12.5% increase in price values. Here in Colorado, we're at like a 3.3%, but the national average at a 6.5%, very substantial growth. And when people are like saying, oh, we expect home prices to drop, there's nothing in the data that indicates anything like that
Yeah,
whatsoever.
especially because the vast majority of the country that was in the lower side of this, right, the western region, Texas, Colorado, all these regions were the ones with the largest price appreciations during the pandemic.
Hmm.
So the fact that they've stayed really resilient like this really shows how we're not going to see those price drops.
No. Yeah, I mean, 49 out of 50 states had price increases.
Yeah.
Hawaii did not. So, and just then also looking at kind of that 1980 to now, what is a typical home appreciation? When you look at a more macro scale, well, 4.86 percent increase per year. And if you're going to bet on housing, it looks like a pretty safe bet, don't you think, Anthony?
Yeah, I would assume so. After 43 years of 5% increase, right? I
Just a
mean,
few down years with a self-inflicted wound we did with mortgages.
that is about all we've got there.
Yeah, and so then just looking forward for where we expect 2024 prices to end up, polling Goldman Sachs, Zillow, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, all those folks out there, NAR on the low end is saying home prices are going to go up 1.4%. Goldman Sachs on the high end is saying 5.5%. So the truth probably lies somewhere in between. But I will say Zillow was very accurate last year. One of the reasons is they continually update it, so they kind of stay accurate however they want. But they did pretty well last year, and I think 3.5%, is a very, very doable number.
Yeah, absolutely. So what about estimated home price performance?
Yeah, so
This is a
looking
ways
forward,
out.
looking the next 5 years, where is price is going to be, and this is HPES data, which is a survey of economists that they look at, and so every year we're seeing prices go up for the next 5 years. It's going to be 3-4%
Yeah, these are much more
moderate,
modest. Mhm.
modest increase, but still beating inflation every single time.
Absolutely. So mortgage rate projections, we look at these all the time and they seem to be a very moving target lately.
Hmm.
But honestly, in December, we were talking 6.6, 6.5% by the end of the year. February of 2024, now we're updating those estimates and
Yeah.
now they're thinking it's 6%.
Yeah, Fannie
No,
Mae's got their numbers. I think we're going to be above 6, though. I mean,
I think we are too.
I don't see the data, dropping that much. So
We do see it dropping,
yeah,
obviously. I mean, that's going to happen at some point as soon
but
as
the Fed,
things get under
has
control.
projected they're not doing it yet. I think we've been saying, May, June is when they're going to do it. I still say we're on track for that.
Mhm.
They've still said their guidance is 3 drops of interest rates this year, and I think the first isn't going to happen until June.
Yeah, I really wouldn't be surprised if we only see two, but even if we see
Yeah.
the first one, these are really going to start to come down because of everything else
There's
going on.
certainly some talk of just 2 for sure. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us today on Front Range Facts. I'm Anthony Meisner at Land Title. You can reach me at my cell 303-968-9868 or ameisner@ltgc.com.
I'm Jim Marion, realtor here at Coldwell Banker. You can give me a call at 303-548-0243 or shoot me an email to jim@ourcoloradohomes.com.
Don't forget, you can reach us on the national podcast, the state podcast, the local podcast. We put out all three every single month. So don't forget to tune in for the other ones. See you next
Have
time.
a great one, folks.